The Voluntary Hardship series is brought to you by Masculine Style. You know, I've worked with Tanner, the owner of Masculine Style, as my style coach for over a year now, and the transformation has been nothing short of incredible. In the same way we provide expert strength coaching at Barbell Logic and meeting clients where they are, Tanner is really a kindred spirit in style. He's an expert coach with incredible service, always making you feel heard, and because he's a longtime client of Barbell Logic online coaching, he knows how to help you find your own style rather than forcing you into something that you're not. His coaching has absolutely transformed the way I feel and carry myself and the way other people perceive me, whether in person or on video conference calls. It's been one of the best purchases I've made over the past 18 months. You can check him out, and you can do that at masculine-style.com/BLOC. That's masculine-style.com/BLOC for a special offer just for Barbell Logic listeners. Again, that's masculine-style.com/BLOC. You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship.
Welcome to the Barbell Logic Podcast. I'm Scott Hambrick, and we have Matt Reynolds, and today we're going to talk about getting all up in your head and how that's probably not a big help to you when you're in the gym. You get up in your head, Matt Reynolds?
You turn it over to me. That was a long pause. That was like in the old days of guys that do podcasts like with no partner. You ever listen to I remember the Jim Rome show. The guy was a sports guy. He just has these 11-second pauses of dead silence.
He's collecting himself.
In the podcast. Well, I mean, there's nobody to talk to, right? I think he's got all these pieces of paper and computer screens, so he's kind of all right, what topic do I move on to now? Yeah, getting in your head, man.
You know, we were talking about being terrified of squats, and one of our friends has problems with squats and bench presses, and he's like, man, I can grind when it's presses and deadlifts. Isn't that what he said? Isn't that right?
I can say who it is.
Let's throw him under the bus.
Well, I mean, it's CJ Gocher. I coach him. I coach a lot of the coaches on staff, and the guy can just grind out. He's like, man, I can just grind on presses and grind on deadlifts. And it's like I've never learned how to grind on a squat and a bench press. There's something about it. And I said, yeah, it's one, I think for me, I feel a lot safer on a heavy press or heavy deadlift. It's super rare, if ever, that you would see somebody drop a press on their head.
Right. I have seen your wife rest one on top of her head.
She also knocked out a tooth pressing once. So she's an anomaly. She knocked a tooth out on the way down. You know, you can see hitting a tooth, accidentally trying to get it too close to your face and smacking your front tooth. But she knocked a tooth. She busted a tooth that we had to have repaired. So, in a deadlift, there's nowhere for the bar to go but back to the floor. But there's something about the squat and the bench press that with that weight being over your body, on top of your body, that if it misses, it's just something you got this sort of governor in your brain that's I'm not sure I want to worry about this.
Yeah, when we talk about failing a squat, we talk about getting stapled, we talk about getting squashed. The language around it shows, how spooky it all is. And so, if you've had some of those failures in the squat or bench press, people can get hurt badly with the bench press.
Sure.
You're going to be really prone to be up in your head, right? To, be traumatized by that and to be afraid of it. There's different kinds of being up in your head. So we'll talk about, this being afraid of these lifts first, and then we'll talk about overthinking them later. But I have failed so many squats when they mattered that I probably at my root question my ability to even do them, when they matter.
Yeah.
So I just have no confidence when it comes to a heavy squat. It's beyond being afraid of them or not being able to grind. I just have no confidence in my ability to do them.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, I think.
No, I mean, yeah, although it's weird the way that can sort of play both ways. You've missed a lot of squats and yet never hurt yourself on a missed squat.
Right.
How to correctly, you grind against the squat. If it's just too damn heavy, you just set it on the pins.
I've gotten really good at failing them.
right? Well,
Right.
that's a problem. And that's a big deal, right? We've talked about this before. This is why we talked about this in the grind episodes or when we talk about that. It's why it's important to teach your body and teach the motor pattern to learn how to grind against something and don't just fail and give up when it gets hard. Now, I don't think you do that. You're just...
If they get too far forward, I can't recover. There's nothing to grind against.
Yeah, it's just too much.
I'm just screwed and I can set them down.
Yeah, Nikki Sims is the same thing. Like she misses a fair amount of squats, but if you think about it, it's just like it's so much moment arm. And if that bar gets forward at all or something goofy happens, it's just too much to overcome. Whereas if you're somebody with little short femurs and long torso, you're probably not that scared of a squat because like you're the kind of person who, we don't suggest this, by the way, don't do this, but who could throw the bar off your back.
Right.
If you're long torsoed, short femured.
I saw just the other day, they posted a video, remember which account it was, it's on Instagram, of Chase dumping a 600-pound squat off his back, and it didn't bend the bar. That's what the point of the video was.
Right.
Just squat back down to the pins. Like, don't dump them.
Well, they weren't testing the bar. The point was, it was just testing the bar was a byproduct of him throwing the weight off his back.
I think he got on his heels a little bit.
I got it. Got unbalanced and chucked it.
Yeah, but just lean over. I mean, lean way over and take a knee and,
Yeah, make sure you set your pins. Yeah, so it's interesting that I've got clients like you who the more they fail, on the squat specifically, let's say, the more they fail, the less confident they have to complete heavy squats when they need to. 1 rep max, 3 rep max, 5 rep max, 3x5s, whatever, PR type stuff. You just don't have the confidence to complete it. And then I've got some other clients who have never failed a squat, are also terrified to fail. And the first time they fail the squat, it gives them a tremendous amount of freedom. They're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I just went down, couldn't get up, and set it on the pins.
Right.
You're like, right. If you set your pins correctly and you pay attention to the stuff we've put out on barbell safety, like there really is no reason to hurt yourself on a squat if the pins are in the right spot.
Right. Yeah, I'm not afraid of being hurt. The thing is, it's so much work to do a heavy squat.
Sure.
And then when you don't get anything for it, it's just horrible.
Yep. I agree. I'm terrified of a squat. I've always been terrified of a squat. My whole life I've been terrified of a squat. And I was terrified of squats before my hips were really bad, right? Like I've always had generally bad hips. I had bad hips in elementary school, but they didn't scare me. As a matter of fact, I was watching some old videos I saw on YouTube the other day on the old Reynolds Strong account of me doing like these box squats and stuff. And I couldn't believe how wide my stance was. Like it wasn't wide. It was like normal wide.
Right.
It was wide for me. So you know what I'm thinking about on a squat for me?
You're thinking about the head of your trochanter breaking.
That's exactly right. So there are two pieces of fear. There is the fear of the lift itself and like what occurs if I fail. Or I'm just scared of this because it's so heavy, or I'm scared of it because I don't have confidence that I can get it. I actually don't think I've ever thought that. I just don't have that fear of not being able to do the weight.
I can literally feel when I unrack a heavy one, and my heavy ones aren't as heavy as most people's. I can literally feel, not that this is actually happening, but I can like anticipate the head of my femur breaking off. Like the whole time I'm just like, it's going to click. It's just going to go click, and I'm just going to crumple like a rag doll.
So what I think about, this is so bad. Here's the question. Is this podcast going to help people, or are we going to put this weird shit in their head and then they're going to think it? I think about
who cares?
My acetabulum exploding.
Like your pelvis just crumbling like a coffee cup.
Yeah, I know the head of my femur is probably fine. It ain't going anywhere.
Right.
So, I know you're not a sports guy. You know who Bo Jackson is or was, right? So, I mean, this Bo Jackson, if you guys haven't watched the 30 for 30 on Bo Jackson, it's amazing. The guy literally is like the greatest athlete maybe of all time. And he exploded his acetabulum out of the back of his hip as a running back. So the guy, was an all-pro running back and an all-star baseball player, both. And also happened to run a 4.1 40 at 235 pounds.
Right.
That was amazing. So the guy has so much power and so much force. While there were two guys hanging on him to try to tackle him, he continued to churn his legs and drive force into the ground. And they had a hold of him by the jersey and by the seat of his pants.
It was like belt squats.
Yeah, and he literally blew out the back of his pelvis from the head of his femur.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about is occurring. I've got enough osteoarthritis in my hips that as I descend into a squat, I have zero concern over squatting the weight back up. As a matter of fact, it's really rare that you can find video of me literally grinding on a squat. Like I get it, or sometimes I get down there and it just like my hip grinds and I just go, nope, it ain't going. But I mean, I bet I've missed 3 squats in 5 years. I don't miss squats because I'm so scared what would happen for my hips. But I get down there and all I'm thinking to myself is this the one where my hips explode or a hip explodes?
Jackson must have had some sort of a birth defect. You too. Because I think that typically doesn't happen unless somebody's like in a car wreck and their knee hits the dash and it drives their femur through their pelvis. Right. Like it's normally like huge impulse forces that would cause that.
Well, I definitely know that I don't have the same birth defect that Bo Jackson had.
Right.
I don't actually think that my acetabulum is going to break.
You're just crazy.
Like, I don't believe that it's going to happen, but this is the thing. This podcast is, we're talking about getting in your head. In my head, while the bar's on my back and while I'm descending into a squat, I'm like, my hip's going to blow. My hip's going to blow. My hip's going to blow. That's in my head.
How do you not do that then? How do you not have this phobic, these phobic thought patterns?
I distract myself. I use distraction for that.
Do you have Rachel kick you in the nuts just before you unrack the bar?
No, because I don't.
Maybe you should try that.
Well, I mean, look, I realize that what you're saying is a joke, but the reality is a lot of people will have somebody slap them or slap in the back of the head or back or whatever. Like, I don't want any of that. I don't like getting slapped at all. Like, I just not, like when my kids said when they were little, I don't want a spanking.
Right.
Nobody wants a spanking. Right. I don't want to get grounded from my phone. Like, yeah, nobody wants to get grounded from your phone. I realize nobody wants to get hit, but sometimes they use that as sort of the adrenaline rush to do it. I think for me, if the squat is really heavy, then I will play. Listen, everybody that's watched me knows that I like the song Bleeding Me by Metallica, and I think it's because I can focus on the song and it takes my brain. Don't laugh at me. It's just, listen, it's an OCD thing. I get it. Like, it's not about the quality of the song.
Right.
And I will hit an ammonia capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the combination of those two things makes me not think about the hip. And I don't know that either one of those actually help me. Matter of fact, I would generally say they don't help me squat the weight. They just help me to be distracted enough. I'm focused enough. And I'm not a yeller. I'm not like, rah, and then, take a snort of ammonia and then, rah, I don't, there's none of that stuff. I'm real quiet and real laser focused, but I'm not focused on the hip, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take the focus off the hip.
I pressed 200, which isn't a PR, but I've been sick and it was heavy for me. And I uploaded the video. Did you turn the sound on? I know you didn't.
No, I never turned the sound on.
Oh, I was yelling and cussing the whole time. It hurt. It was awful.
That's funny.
I was vocal.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I will curse at myself, even before the lift, It's just sort of like I am so wired for competition. When somebody tells me I can't do X, I'm going to do X, even if I'm the guy telling myself that I can't do X. Talk about getting in your head. Like, how weird is that?
Mm.
But I remember this. Some of you guys are sports fans. It's rare that we talk about sports. Roger Clemens, you know who that is too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Roger Clemens, the Hall of Fame baseball player. I believe he got ejected from a baseball game once because the umpire thought that he was yelling profanity at the umpire.
Right.
He was yelling profanity at himself.
Right.
You stupid SOB, mother effer, POS, like all that. And he was talking to himself to sort of motivate himself and get riled up. And I'll do that sort of self-deprecating, like, hey, we're being vulnerable. This is a get in your head thing. I've had all sorts of weird. People will tell you that they have OCD tendencies, and I call bullshit on it most of the time. But if you knew the stuff that I did as a kid, like, it's clear. And if you knew my dad and my grandma, his mom, very heavy OCD in my family. And so I have a lot of that. And so in my younger lifting days, man, everything I did, like everything had to feel just right. The wrist wrap had to be just right. I would grip the bar and ungrip the bar and grip the bar and ungrip the bar and grip the bar and ungrip the bar until I got it. Okay, now it feels right.
I think that actually has value because I think we've all done a heavy rep of whatever lift and it went and it felt right.
Yeah.
And so if we have all these little rituals, that those serve to make it feel that way, it can like instill confidence and actually there's probably something technically happening too. You're like, you're talking about your grip, you're changing your grip, you're moving the thing. For me on the squat, it's like, can I get into my back in the exact, like to the millimeter place on my back? It's not just nervous tics maybe, right?
Yeah.
Probably serving a purpose.
Yeah, I think maybe you're starting, if you think about the lift, what you're trying to do in all of the lifts, you're trying to repeat a correct motor pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff that occurs before the lift ever starts is often you're sort of starting down that motor pattern highway. We've got an article on the Barbell Logic side about lifting rituals, and people that have seen me press, I do that thing where I rock back and forth. Arms go straight, and then my arms go bent. I pull myself close to the bar, then far away, and then close, and then far away, and then close.
I want you to stop
I
doing
do that
that.
about 5 times, and then I throw my elbows underneath and stand up, and I do it until the cadence feels right, is what I'm doing. When I swing out and swing in, it's almost always like 5, 6 times. It's not exactly the same number because it's more on feel. So when I go back and it feels right as I swing underneath, boom, stand up, walk back, press.
Yeah, I hate when you do that because the bar's on the front of the hooks when you do that, and you're like pulling back on it. And I'm like,
yeah, I know, but I've never pulled the bar off the.
I know, but I want you to stop.
Yeah, I get it. So squat. Anything else on the squat fear before? I've got a couple other lifts. I want to talk about bench press and stuff too.
I wish I could tell somebody something practical about, how to overcome that. But I think that as a practical matter, set your safeties, go ahead and use them.
Yeah.
Go ahead and use them so that you don't actually have to fear injury there. And just pay attention. We had a show, I don't know, gosh, it's been probably a year ago now, where you were talking about you get to the point when you get a little more experienced where you know that if you get this one thing right, like for every lifter, there's one thing that if they get it right, their heavy rep is going to go okay. And if you can find that one thing for you in that lift and focus on that one thing, then maybe you don't have to be preoccupied with the other anxiety producing aspects of that lift. So, use your safeties and then find out what that one thing is. And I'll tell you, I just figured out what the one thing for me is in the press. I have to have the thing over my midfoot the instant it comes out of the rack.
Right.
I tend to pick it up a little forward of my midfoot, and then I have to adjust and then throw it. No, it has got to be dead nuts exactly right as I take it in my hands. No margin for error.
It feels lighter.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? So it's a psychological thing. If you take it out and it's in front and there's a little moment arm there, well, you're not pressing it yet, so what's the big deal? Well, it feels heavy.
Yep.
So then you tell yourself, like, oh, by the way, that's the main reason I swing out and swing in. Really, almost anybody, but certainly a guy my size, if my feet are in the right spot to pick the bar up directly over midfoot, I am pushed up against the barbell.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to do that. So what I do is I grab the barbell and lean back, and I'm sort of pulling back on the barbell like I am trying to pull it out of the J-hooks, but I don't pull that hard. And so I swing myself forward and then back and then forward and then back. And then at some point I get forward, I get all the way underneath the bar, and boom, I take it out real hard with authority. For press, that's taking the bar out with authority and making it feel right is a huge part of the press. You see newbies, especially who are getting into that like 2 months down the road in LP, where their presses haven't been heavy yet, and now they're starting to get heavy. And so, if you're taking a light press out of the rack 2 weeks out, it doesn't matter if you don't take it out of the rack with authority. But as it gets heavy, if you don't take it out with a bunch of authority, cadence on the press is a big deal. Take it out with authority, step, breath, throw. Like it's got to be something like that or you're going to miss.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's what authority doesn't look like. If you're kind of squishy under it and you just grab the bar and you stand up and you walk it out, I mean, that's not it. You've got to be super, super tight.
Yeah.
It's almost like a front squat to get it out. Like you've got to be super tight. Everything's braced. And then you do about 1/8 of a squat up to get the bar out of the rack, and you walk it out like Frankenstein, stiff-legged, and throw it. It's not necessarily about aggression. It's not about being passive either. So the authority, it's like taking the whole damn thing serious from the instant your toes go under the bar, because a press, as simple as the thing looks,
that's right,
cannot be taken lightly.
What do you think about the bench press? Do you have any fear on the bench press?
I have some crunchy shoulders, and I don't really have any fear, but I got to have my elbows in the right spot, and I've got to groove that, or I'm going to have some pretty uncomfortable bench presses, and it can ruin the set or even the session if I fire one of those up and make them angry.
Yeah.
So I'm not really afraid of the bench press. That one's not a big problem for me, probably because they're not heavy enough.
Well, I mean, your bench press is getting up there.
But I got to worry about that.
I am more scared during the bench press than I am any other lift, and it's because of past injuries. So it's definitely something we need to talk about. So
you've got PTSD when it comes to that.
Yeah, I probably do, right? I don't take that term lightly. I don't put it on the same level of guys that have experienced that in wartime or anything, but I have torn both pecs badly. I tore my right pec pretty bad, and I tore my left pec really bad. And it's been years for both I tore my right pec, I don't know, 6 years ago probably, and tore my left pec 3-ish years ago, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And every single rep of anything over 225 at this point, all I'm thinking about is, like, it's hard to explain. My pecs, both of them tore pretty fast. Now, they weren't complete avulsions, and they're normally not with the pec, so you really can't do much to get it fixed. It's just a giant muscle belly tear. But for both of mine, they tore fast. It felt like if you unzipped a pair of jeans as fast as you could. It just went zip,
right,
real fast, right? So it was a 1 second thing.
No, it's gross.
Once you felt that, I'm telling you, man, it is hard to lower the bar, that eccentric motion on the bench press, without thinking about it. I've done the Bill Starr rehab routine through all of it. I've not re-injured it. I've had little minor tweaks and stuff since then, but I've also, I've never gone. 405 is as heavy as I've gone since I tore that left pec. I just cannot, and I probably shouldn't, right? We've talked about this. I probably shouldn't.
Nope.
I'm not a competitive powerlifter anymore. I can bench press 315 for reps and not be too nervous after the first one. So the first rep of 315, the first descent is like, is it going to go? Is it going to go? Is it going to, like, when I say is it going to go, I mean, is it going to blow is what I'm thinking about. Are one of my pecs going to blow? After the first rep, I lock it out. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I can go through the set. And then I don't think about it again until I start sort of grinding at the end of the last rep, 315 for 11 or 12 or whatever. I get to that point, I start going like, okay, now how much do I actually want to strain here? At the top of the bench press, it's really almost all tricep. It's elbow extension at the top, but your pecs are actively isometrically holding at that point.
Yep.
Because the humerus is basically there. It's holding the humerus where it should be. And that's a lot of force. That isometric hold is still a lot of force on the pec. That's why people strain their pecs on a deadlift. How much is the humerus moving? Not. Right? That pec is just kind of holding it steady, and the lats are as well. And so, they're antagonists. So I am very worried about, I realize that the vast majority of our listeners have not torn a pec, thank God. But a lot of our listeners have injured themselves. So we have a mutual friend, somebody that you introduced us to, the couple that I coach, one of your best buddies, his wife, who's a good lifter, and she tore her hamstring pretty good at the last meet she did. And you can just tell on her videos that she's timid on the deadlift.
You bet.
It's weird. On the squat, I mean, look, isn't there just as good of a chance of hurting your hamstring on a squat as there on a deadlift? I mean, probably.
Right.
But she just doesn't seem to be timid on the squat because she didn't injure herself on the squat.
Right.
And the deadlift weight she's doing, we've done rehab on it and done the rehab routine and let her work up and work up and work up. And so now she's working at about 15% less than she was of her training weights when she hurt it, not the actual PR she was attempting at the meet. And she's getting timid. You can just tell. She's got this look in her eye like she's waiting for it to pop again.
Right.
And so we've been talking about how to overcome that. And it's tough, man. If you're somebody that's used to gripping and ripping on a deadlift,
right,
you're not going to be able to do it. And you probably increase the potential of actually hurting itself, right?
Yep.
The greatest predictor of future injury is past injury. And so if that's the case, and we know that's the case, like people that tear their ACLs once often tear their ACLs multiple times. Now, there's certain surgeries, you tear your bicep tendon, the way they screw that thing in on the backside of the radius, it ain't tearing again. So there are some injuries that actually get surgery and they're stronger post-surgery, but this was a muscle belly tear. There's nothing to have surgery on. And as she gets ready to deadlift, you can tell she's thinking about it. So with that, same issue as what you talked about with squats, the takeaway practical cue is, number one, focus on absolutely perfect form. When people get scared and they just dive bomb something, that's when they get hurt, right? Focus on absolutely perfect form.
Yeah.
And two, make sure you're set up for safeties on the squat, safeties on the bench press. On the deadlift, it's about squeezing the bar off the floor.
Squeezing the bar off the floor. You don't get a run at it. You start with the hips high, and you gradually make the bottom of your feet heavy until you're standing.
That's right. Well, and I think you can
slow and easy.
You can even attempt. It doesn't really work in a heavy deadlift, but I think it's perfectly fine cue to think about accelerating the barbell once it's off the ground.
Right.
But I don't think accelerating the barbell from the ground. I squeeze it off the ground, and the second I feel the weights come off the ground, now we're going as hard and fast as we can. But by that time, everything's already tense, so you're not going from loose, slacked to super tense and super contraction, right? Which that's the thing that could potentially cause a muscle belly problem.
It's most often those impulses that cause the injury.
That's right.
From 0 to 60, boom, the impulse is often the problem. But, you know, the thing is, though, the sports that we love here, we don't really get injured.
Correct.
You know, you can go look at injury rates for sports. It's well documented for every sport. And our injury rate is like that of curling.
Right.
No, I mean, like horseshoes and
Canada curling, not bro curling.
Not bro curling, right. I mean, the injury rates are very, very low.
Yeah, like running a stone down a piece of ice.
I have clients, I've got 2 or 3 right now that are newbies. They're squatting 100 pounds, Matt.
Yeah.
And they're grown men,
yeah.
You know, and they are in mortal fear of damaging their spines.
Right.
Literally, a couple of these guys are physicians.
Well, they've been brainwashed.
They know too much.
Right.
Well, they've worked in the ER too, you know, like
Except they've never seen anybody hurt their spine like lifting.
Right.
Even
right.
all the ones that are lifting wrong, like how rare it occurs, right? The problem is this combination of I've done nothing but look at injured people my entire career, and B, the culture that I was raised in this sort of medical PT culture is don't lift heavy weights or you will shear your spine in two.
Right.
So even though we can go, but look, the data says and the research says that nobody actually does that.
Yeah.
We can't find anybody that does that, you know?
And let's not even get started talking about how you're not lifting heavy weights. But
right. And that you're doing it under the eye of a coach and he's making sure that your form is correct. That's the crazy thing, that you've got these people that don't hurt themselves, even though they lift really heavy weights and with a really terrible form. Injury rate is still low on that. It can happen, but it's low. You know, if you've been lifting for a while, you've probably made significant changes to your body, good changes, positive changes. And after changing your build, your old clothes aren't going to fit anymore. And if you just buy new sizes of the same thing, you'll minimize the effect of how much you've transformed. By improving your style, especially in the middle of your fitness journey, you give yourself a mental win and get to see a whole new version of yourself in the mirror. And this helps solidify in your own mind that you're making progress and that you'll be at your target strength and build before you know it. So whatever the reasons were that you started to lift, you've likely found other unexpected benefits, improvements to your mental health, your relationships, your energy levels, and your self-respect. Thankfully, getting stronger isn't the only way to level up in all those other aspects of your life, and improving your style, I've personally found, will help compound all the progress you've made with your strength training. Coach Tanner at Masculine Style can help you with those steps. Coach Tanner has been my coach. He's the owner of Masculine Style and longtime Barbell Logic online coaching client. He's helped me for about 18 months now and just completely transformed my style. Not trying to make me something I'm not, but to actually feel more comfortable in exactly who I am. And so it's been a tremendous benefit to me, the way I carry myself, the way I feel about myself, which is more important to me even than the way other people perceive me, but even the way other people perceive me has, I think, changed and transformed dramatically over the last year and a half, just by the way I carry myself and the way I dress. And so it's more than just clothes, it's a mindset, it's a lifestyle. And we're thankful for Masculine Style, for Coach Tanner, for supporting the Voluntary Hardship series. Go and check him out. He is an expert coach that is a kindred spirit to what we do at Barbell Logic. He focuses on service and high-touch, one-on-one coaching with his clients. This isn't something where you're thrown into a class, but he spends lots of time with his clients, and it's been absolutely one of the best purchases I've made over the past year and a half. You can check him out. He's got a special deal just for Barbell Logic listeners at masculine-style.com/BLOC. That's masculine-style.com/BLOC. It's time to level up your style. You spent all this time getting stronger, carrying yourself better, changing your body. Now it's time to bring the style up to the same standards as your strength. masculine-style.com/BLOC.
If the programming's conservative and correct, you're not going to be putting anything on the bar that's going to put you at risk either. You know, if you put an extra 2.5 to 5 pounds on the bar and you've already, you know, moved the previous weight properly for 3 sets of 5, I mean, you're not going to get injured.
Right.
You're just not. Right. It's just incrementally more. It's a little more.
Yep.
It's a little bit more.
Yeah, and we're talking about real injuries, right? So certainly we deal with little aches and pains. You get achy, you get some pain, maybe you develop a little bit of tendonitis. Maybe you get a little muscle strain, but all of those things are so minor and so easy to recover and rehab from.
But those are live.
Right. That's the kind of stuff that people do that don't train, right? When people don't train, they get little muscle strains, right? When people don't train, they get little aches and pains. When people don't train, my brother-in-law was helping me pack boxes 2 days ago, and he had a bin, a big Rubbermaid bin full of books he was carrying out to the garage. We were going to take them to storage. And so he carried them out. Well, on the way out, he inflamed his bicep tendonitis. He went out to the truck, and he had an elbow wrap and wrapped his elbow up. The guy doesn't lift at all.
Right.
I don't know. He's never lifted in his life, but he's got elbow tendonitis. He's got bicep tendonitis having not lifted. So, I mean, that's all stuff you're going to get anyway. I will say the box of books were very heavy because I got the next box of books, and we carried them up the stairs, and I was like, God, it was one of those 30-gallon Rubbermaid container, and it was packed full of children's books, like the little thin.
Right. So there's no air in that box.
No air at all. There's no space between the thing. Probably actually weighed like 200 pounds. It was a pretty heavy box. So for an untrained person, it's pretty heavy. But yeah. But it was obviously he had tendonitis anyway, right? He already had the elbow thing out in his, and it didn't come from squats and bench press.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with my people lately about pain. I've been telling them I'm almost angry about these conversations, and I'm kind of getting tired of them, but I know it's meaningful. So we'll have the conversation now, man.
Well, we all had to go through it anyway. You have to have this conversation with your clients because you thought this probably at one point yourself.
Maybe.
Okay.
Like discomfort, they're like, squats really hurt.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. Point to it and take a picture. Well, it's
everywhere.
It's over here. It's right around, and I'm like, wait a minute. So we needed to really introspect here and think about what it is. We have all kinds of sensations, and we need to really think about what these are. Like pain is sharp or shooting. So we don't want sharp or shooting sensations. We don't want burning or tingling.
Right.
And we don't want numbness.
Right.
Everything else is discomfort.
Right.
And you put 315 on the barbell.
That's right.
And swing it out of your face, your shoulders are going, and your elbows and everything are going to experience a great deal of discomfort.
Sure.
And how we experience that, we can influence how we experience those things by thinking about them carefully and analyzing them. And so I think there's a lot of anxiety about these lifts among the newer lifter because they're experiencing it as pain and danger. So you and I have been talking about all of this injury stuff, and the truth of it is very few people have any of those problems.
Yeah.
But they put the bar on their back. He's a skinny, underweight guy in week 3 of LP. He's not been eating like he's supposed to, and he has 3 millimeters of skin between his bones and the barbell, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, sure.
Really?
Sure. No, you're right. Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And he's like, my back hurts. I was like, no, it doesn't. Well, maybe it does, but so what?
Right.
Right. You're not injured.
It's not an injury. That's right.
And you've got to do the thing. And you can't let your brain keep you from getting strong. You can't.
Well, this is why we do hard things, right? And you can see this is why when you coach a person who has done hard things already, right? They've been like, we've got guys that have been in like special forces that we coach, or guys that were wrestlers in high school and college. Like, they never have an issue with this because they've already learned that, right? They've already learned that lesson.
Right.
And they get a tremendous benefit out of weightlifting, out of strength training too. But I really think the person that gets the most benefit out of strength training is the person that's never learned it.
Oh, sure.
And that's the person that you're having to have this conversation with. Like, hey,
right.
Fatigue and soreness and those sorts of things are common. They're okay, right? Now, we're not CrossFit. We're not live sore. That's not the idea. But the first few weeks,
no,
your body is trying to adapt to a thing it's never done before. You've never done this physical. Nobody would run a marathon and go the next day, be like,
feeling good.
My feet really, there's something wrong with my feet. You'd be like, what'd you do yesterday? Well, I ran 26.2 miles. Wait a minute. Your feet probably aren't injured. Maybe they are. Your feet probably aren't injured. They're just ran 26.2 miles.
Right.
The same thing here. Like, I put weight on my back and squatted it that I had never done before. There's a residual effect that occurs there, right?
And so they're up in their head about all the things that could go wrong. And, you and I have been talking about all that, and I kind of feel bad about it because they don't need to hear more of that shit. But the truth of it is nobody gets injured, and they're not going to get injured. They're only squatting 3.5% more than they squatted last time.
Sure.
And to tell you the truth, it ain't heavy anyway.
Right.
If you're not squatting in the 450 and up and whatever, and you're a guy, listen, I know it's your heavy, and that's my heavy too. I get it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to tear your bones up. You're not going to tear yourself up. You're well within the engineering limits of your machine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yep.
So you've just got to stop. Listen, you've got to stop sabotaging yourself. You've got to stop letting your mind be the governor on your behavior. You've got to stop letting your supposed intellect give yourself excuses to not be a stronger, more robust person. And you're weak. You're not robust. That's not the way you should want to live, and that's not the way I want you to live. So know that your body is a machine. It's got some engineering limits, and we're not going to ask you, an LP, to do anything beyond those limits. Eat your food and be confident in the process and do the stuff with perfect form, and you will be a better person as a result of that. Now, if you can't not do that, then I can't help you. Like how many people, starting strength online coaching is a little bit different than in-person clients. Online coaching clients stick with it more than in-person clients, I found, Matt. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's probably true. It's probably true.
If I get guys in LP that sign up for online coaching, they tend to stick with it. People, I don't think more than maybe half of the people that come to me for an initial teach me the 4 lifts kind of session, I don't think half of them persist more than maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
It's hard. They can't not get out of their own way.
Well, it's equally as hard for the online coaching. So what's the difference between in-person and online with the higher churn rate with in-person?
The commitment to the monthly expense and the online coaching just weeds out the people who were lukewarm in the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
But if somebody can come and they're like, well, I'll get an in-person session, I'll get my kicked off right.
Okay.
And, it's expensive, but I'll get started right. And the next thing you know, it's 3 weeks in and they're squatting 175. It's a guy. 175 in 3 weeks is not real aggressive.
No, but
and
good.
They're like,
it's solid. It's fine.
It's good. Hey, listen, it's PR, probably.
That's right. That's right.
Great.
Sure.
And they're like, it's uncomfortable. It hurts.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. And they quit.
It probably just comes down to long-term accountability. With online coaching, you have long-term accountability for a pretty good price point. And to do in-person coaching with long-term accountability with a coach is expensive, more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have the freedom to train when you want.
Right.
You have to line it up with the client, right? With the coach.
Well,
it's like going to get my hair cut or going to a doctor. I've got to set an appointment, then I've got to meet that appointment. So whereas if you have these guys that drop in for 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, or hey, they're going to get 2 weeks, or they're going to pay for a month, they're going to go off and do it on their own. As soon as they go off and do it on their own, there is no more accountability. And so they stop.
I've got a young man who I'm coaching online, and he's not eating his food. He's a nice guy. He's a good kid. He's not eating his groceries, and his head's in the way on that. Oh, I'm full. It's like, dude, you got to take Raising Cane's 20 strip challenge until you're full. You're not full. He's not full. Or he's at a food PR. He's maybe more full than he's ever been, but come on, man, we can eat more food than that.
Right. Sure.
But I called him the other day. I said, hey, man, I want to be your Uncle Scott for a minute. Do your work. Eat your food. Stop thinking about it. Would you get strong? I chewed his ass out. And I was like, I love you. I mean, I'm not hating you, but damn it. Stop thinking about all of it. It works. Look at all of these people at online coaching. Look at all these people, that use a hashtag for our method on Instagram. They're all way stronger than you. Not because you're a failure. It's because they did it longer. And if you do it a long time, you'll be like that. So stop.
That's right.
Stop all the thinking. Just do it. And then, so here's the other kind of being up in your head. The other kind of being up in your head is here's your cue. Just reach back with your butt, okay? I want you to pretend like there's a straight back wooden chair too far behind you, and you've got to sit in that chair, okay? So when I tell you butt back, I want you to think about that and do that, okay? Well, what are we trying to do here? If I do that, then when I fall over, and then, maybe this would be a better... It's look, you came in here because you needed help, because your broken tools got you what you get. We're going to use my tools and you're not going to think about it. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm not trying to be mean, but you got to let go of the steering wheel here and you got to reach back and try to sit in that chair for me. That's it. That's it.
Yep. Our job is to try to make it as simple as we can. You can't overthink. That's the problem. As soon as you overthink it, you're dead. It's the fighter pilot mentality. We're trying to establish a motor pattern and
just reach back.
Yeah. Just reach back. Thinking about anything more than that is too much, right? If that's the right cue. So,
and I have no problem with people that are like, hey, I want to understand more, blah, 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 blah. And there's a place for that. And clearly, as somebody who got the credential and everything, I share that curiosity.
Sure.
But when it's cue time, no, we're not even going to talk about it. Your job is to reach back.
Yeah. If you're a long-term client, we're going to explain all that stuff anyway, because we want you to know. Because we want you to be able to coach and change your lives of your family and friends but
yeah, because there's just something about the cue that is precognitive, right? Like my understanding of the model is not enough to get me to squat properly. Correct. And I understand the model.
That's right.
I can't think about it enough to squat correctly.
Correct.
I have to have a coach.
We see this all the time.
Scream chest up at me.
Right.
And I'm like, but we're doing a low bar squat. I shouldn't be doing no.
I should be hip driving. Don't I hip drive? Like, not you, man. Your torso's literally parallel to the ground.
My tits are between my knees.
Yeah, chest up, right? Like it, right.
Right.
And so, yeah, we see it all the time. We see people who are diehard fans of the model, who've read all the books, who've done all the things, and then you watch them squat, and you're like, wow, that's not even close to what the model is.
Right.
And then you have people who have read all the books and done all the things, and then even done the training correctly under a coach, and then they go try to be a coach, and they try to communicate the cues, and it's like starting all over again there too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're trying to over-communicate, there's too many words.
And something I run into with clients, we'll use a cue for a time, and it works. And then they get this, I'm not going to say it's form creep, but things change, because they do change. People's legs get bigger, and their rump gets bigger, and the weight goes up, and, older people, they step in a gopher hole, and they tweak their knee.
Yep.
And so the cue we were using isn't the cue we need anymore. And so sometimes we'll have to cue something opposite of what we were cueing, in fact. And they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it completely throws them off.
They balk at that. And it's like, man, come on. I'm watching these reps and giving you these cues, and you just got to do it. And by the way, if you won't do it, just fire me.
It comes back down to the discussion we've had of the kind of motivation over discipline and teaching versus coaching. And the problem is, again, when you come back to those ideas that we can't externally motivate it at all, you're internally motivated to do the thing. And you and I both believe that on that big time macro view of the world. In the trenches, even as veteran coaches, we so desperately try to motivate our people because we care. Well, I really want them to see, like, oh my gosh, not only have I experienced a tremendous quality of life increase because I went through this process, I've seen tremendous quality of life increase for hundreds of other people who have gone through this process. And I like you and I care about you as a client, and I want you to experience it too, but I can't make you do it. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try real hard, right? I mean, look, this is kind of our religion, right? Like, again, knowing that I'm a pretty religious guy anyway, we are sort of proselytizing this stuff. Like, you just want people to convert so badly to this religion of strength training. Like, this stuff works so much, but like at some point there are some people that just won't, and that's okay. Like, I had to get to the point where we've talked about this, had lots of people be on, not lots, but a handful of my own clients that just made tremendous progress. I would say even better than average progress through novice linear progression. And at the end of novice linear progression, they were pretty damn strong, and then they quit. I was like, what's going on? They're like, oh, the service was fantastic.
Right.
I just hate it. Like, okay.
Sure.
Then, I mean, it's not for you. Okay. Right. So, I mean, after 4 months of this, I understand hating it at, the first 10 days.
I quit squatting after the 5th rep of every set. I'm like, I'm never fucking doing this again. I think if there's anything to take away from this is that we need to have a bias for action, right? If there's fear about the squat, I mean, we intellectually know that the injury rates are very, very low. You have to have a bias for action. You're just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I care about future me more than me right now. And you just have to have a bias for action. You can't think your way to getting stronger. You have to act. We certainly need to learn about our craft and our sport, and there's a time for that, but it's not just before you put the bar on your back. That's not when it is. It's after the sits are done and you and your coach are sitting on the bench and talking about what happened. That's when you learn, but it's not when you have the mask that has to be acted against. We have to have a bias for action. And I think that is, you say a religion. I mean, that's a value that I think that we hold. If you want to start a business, well, you're not going to think about it until it happens. Like, you have to at some point do the thing. We have to have a bias for action. There's a time to plan. There's a time to think, for sure. But ultimately, we're rational beings, but we live in a physical world and we have to act. I hope that helps you. I actually, talking through it has helped me. Like I said, I have a big trouble with the squat. There's nothing to do in terms of the squat except act, except to do the thing. And if I'm not going to do them, then I need to quit. I need to be honest with myself and just say, you know what, I'm out. I'm not going to do this.
But you'll always be scared of them, right? Like, it comes back, and we're going to talk to Dr. Pooter here and do a kind of a bigger piece. We're going to get a professional on about in your head. The way I understand, I've gone to counseling for years. The way I understand things like anxiety is the primary and best way to beat anxiety is to do the thing you're scared of.
Yeah.
So that's the takeaway. Get in the gym today and do the thing you're scared of. Do it right and show yourself it's not that bad. It's okay, right? Like, the fear of the thing, the perception of what could be is always greater than the actual effect of the thing itself.
Yeah, none of it's going to kill us. None of it's going to kill us.
Always. Those things will eat you like a cancer. So,
all right. So if you're one of these guys has the analysis paralysis, please be aware of that and know that you're that guy, and have a bias for action in all things. Please tell a friend about us. I think the way that we grow the audience and get more people to live a life of action is to have you guys tell a friend about our show, and tell a friend about strength training, and invite them over to the home gym and show them the lifts, and see if you can't get them out on the road to a little more robust life.